Jesus, after the resurrection, has quite an appetite. Jesus keeps showing up at food time after the resurrection. He shows up at times when they're out fishing and it's breakfast time. He shows up on the way of Emmaus and he eats food. And here we have the story of the characters who went to Emmaus with Jesus walking along. They have a meal with Jesus. They recognise Jesus at the breaking of bread. Jesus disappears. They then run back to Jerusalem, tell everybody else. They're there eating again. And here we have Jesus eating more food. Time and time again, there are other stories of the post-resurrection Jesus, and he's there eating. So I don't know whether that says something about the humanity of Jesus or the effects of perhaps the crucifixion, but there are a lot of stories about food. And gathering together is an important part of the experience of eating. Jesus appears when people have gathered. And we have here, the beginning of this gospel, we have the apostles are there afraid. They're agitated and they're there preparing a meal. And then these two arrive who've experienced Jesus on the road to Emmaus. They come in, they lock the doors, but they've gathered together. And then Jesus comes into their midst and they start to share a meal. But before they do that, Jesus appears and they think, is he a ghost? The idea of ghosts is not particularly a modern thing, it's actually an ancient thing. They're thinking Jesus is a ghost. And then Jesus says, give me something to eat. Ghosts don't eat. And so time and time again, Jesus shows up after the resurrection and he eats. So there's something important about eating. Something also important about gathering together to eat. Our parish used to be known for a program called Dinner for Eight, where parishioners would gather together in their homes to share a meal. Over the last 12 months, during COVID, we were told not to gather together, to not share food together, to not break bread together. But now in our state, things are going pretty well. And the government's really encouraging us to get back to some normality. And for Christians, breaking bread together is a normal thing. It's actually not just a normal thing, it's an experience of Easter. Eating food together, not just by ourselves, but gathering together with friends. That's part of the experience of being a Christian, to have a conversation together. Often I talk about with children at times of First Holy Communion that they need to have an experience of a meal. Unfortunately, in many contexts today, and I know I probably even suffer from doing this as well, that I'll eat food, because I live by myself, I'll eat food sometimes by myself in front of the TV watching the football. I'm sure some of us do this as well. But that's not what Jesus has designed food to be. It's meant to be an opportunity for people to gather together, to converse, to speak, to share about our hopes, our dreams, our fears. And the last 12 months, we've in essence been told to become a bit like ghosts, to not see each other, except virtually. Now we're told, especially after the resurrection, to gather, to eat together. So if you haven't invited somebody to your house recently, if it's been over 12 months since you've had some friends around, maybe tonight is a good reminder, with Jesus having an appetite on the resurrection, to start to think, maybe it's time to have some people over. Maybe it's time to have a proper conversation around the dinner table. When I was living in Rome about a decade ago, Australia's ambassador to the Holy See at the time was a guy called Tim Fisher. You might remember him. He used to be the Deputy Prime Minister. And I got to know Tim Fisher quite well. And Tim loved to express that when he would gather together with people, he would say, we have to break bread together. It's a very scriptural thing, straight out of what we heard from our scriptures today. And he would often ring me up and he said, we haven't had dinner for a while, let's break bread together. When are we doing it? And I talked to a number of different people, and that was part of their experience of Tim Fisher, of breaking bread together. It was the Christian thing of the resurrection. So tonight, if you haven't gathered with a few friends, if you've just been gathering in your own little home and you haven't gone out with friends as well, perhaps start to think about and plan about it. We can't become ghosts. Jesus is eating food to show that he's alive, that the resurrection is real. So let us be real about our faith as well. Let's gather together with friends and celebrate our faith. Share our joys, share our fears, share our anxieties. But let's break bread together with our risen Jesus. That's what we do when we come to Mass, but we're called to do that out in our world. Let us no longer be in fear, but let us be courageous. Let us be witnesses to the resurrection in living it out in our homes and within our local community.